Hey guys, Booligan here with Booligan Shooting Sports, bringing you the latest project build from the Booligan Custom Gunworks division of ungentlemanly warfare. I call this Lisle. It is inspired by the Lisle Carbine from World War II, which, if you do not know, was a special purpose-built rifle designed for hush-hush work, both discreet work as well as literally hush-hush, very silent work. It was built off of infield receivers, chambered in 45 ACP with a large integral suppressor up front, and by all reports are excruciatingly rare and hilariously silent. Just ridiculously quiet shooting guns. I always loved that concept of a full-size rifle, if you will, with an integrally suppressed barrel, but shooting the 45 ACP round. Where mine differs, and why it's called Der Lisle, is because mine has more Germanic origins, built off of a Mauser style action, in this case actually a Czech VZ24 action, and featuring a Rhineland Arms 45 ACP conversion kit. The conversion kit gets you a magazine block here, which allows you to use 1911 magazines, as well as a custom-made barrel that's normally 16.5 or so inches long. However, what I wanted to do required shortening of the barrel and building of a functional suppressor. So this led me down the NFA route once again, and I filed an e-file Form 1. Originally filed it with kind of a goofy model name, which put me in pending research for over 100 days, but a week after I realized I was going to be in pending research, I filed it again with NA as the model name, and then a just custom serial number, obviously, because this has to be serialized, which allowed me to build a functional, integrally suppressed barrel. We're going to go over this a little bit, and then I'm going to take off the suppressor body, the tube, and we'll show kind of how this thing ticks, how it makes the quiet. So a little bit more about the story of the gun itself. I was trolling for project builds on Utah Gun Exchange, and I came across a VZ24 that was in a fiberglass stock, and then it already had the caliber conversion done. And the price was right, went over, met with the gentleman, kind of told him my plan, and he said, hey, this was actually kind of my final project in gunsmithing school, so it's actually pretty well put together, the caliber conversion. So, bought it from him. Didn't like the fiberglass stock, so I had to buy a surplus VZ24 stock, which is, this guy's heavy. This guy's around 9 pounds, so you struggle a little bit as I flail it around on film here. Kind of an interesting setup. The stock itself is fine. It's got, you know, dings, chips, and whatnot. I stripped it, got all the cosmoline off of it, and then refinished it. But wanted to keep the character intact, so I steamed out some of the dents, but I didn't use any wood filler or anything like that. It's kind of a weird setup because it does have like this middle sling mount. Normally it has like 6 sling mounts on it. These are kind of a ridiculous stock. And then I had to cut it for the front. Obviously, I would have loved to have the wood be kind of curving up the sides of the suppressor body, but I suck at woodworking and don't have the appropriate tools to do that. When it fit in place, it kind of affected the feeding, so I had to do some shim work and whatnot to make it so that it feeds pretty reliably. And now the only issue I'm having that I'm still working out is reliably feeding from the just 1911 magazines, which are really oversprung for what they are, and tend to induce stovepipes when loaded over around 5 or 6 rounds. So still working on getting it feeding from magazines with more than 5 rounds in it, but it just, you know, sort of works like a normal Mauser action would, and is pretty not too exciting on the receiver portion. One cool thing I did add on the receiver portion, obviously there's no sights on it. I would have had to add sights to the suppressor tube, and I didn't want to do that. So I use an RMR style red dot with a custom mount that I designed and printed. You can actually watch my previous video where I first teased this project, showing how I designed and how I printed this mount, and it is on here very solid. I have no concerns with that thing popping loose. So let's talk about the thing people actually care about here. Let's talk about the suppressor. Sort of move this up here so that we can get it in frame a little bit better. So the suppressor itself is over 16 inches long. This is a single stamp rifle. And by single stamp, I mean it is not a short barreled rifle. Even though it has a short barrel in it, we'll get to how we get around that. The barrel goes about halfway, where it was cut and threaded by barrelthreading.com. Of course, this is where I put in my plug for them because they do astounding work every single time that I ask them to do a project. They never roll their eyes at my ridiculous projects, and just really good work. In front of that, which we'll see when we take this off, is a large monochord baffle that I designed in Fusion 360, did a little bit of theoretical fluid testing on that design to see how it would work, and then ended up machining out of aluminum. The suppressor tube and baffles are both aluminum on this build. The reason being it is lighter weight, it's easier for me to work with the tooling that I had available, and with 45 ACP you don't need steel, you don't need titanium. This thing should last basically forever with the aluminum baffle stack and suppressor tube. So you have a large baffle, Monochord Baffle up here, several chambers that help capture those gases that are coming off of the barrel, or excuse me, that are coming off, from behind the round when you shoot, helps slow them down and help cool them, which helps make the rifle silent. That's only from here forward. What happens from here back? This would just be wasted space otherwise. That first baffle is called a blast baffle. And what I did in my design is I added vents, so portions on the monocore that are a little bit thinner, that then let the gas go back over the reflex section over the barrel, which is filled with stainless steel mesh, which helps add more turbulence, helps slow those gases down, and helps cool them down, so it just results in a quite quiet firearm. Now, if I just threw a baffle on the front of a short barrel, it would still be a short barrel rifle. So it has been pinned and welded in place, so that monochord baffle stack at the front is not coming off. However, the tube, which is secured by a couple of screws here at the base and an O-ring which seals it up, is easily able to come off for cleaning and maintenance and what have you. All Form 1 suppressors, SBRs, and whatnot need to be engraved with the name of the maker, in which case me, or my trust, but in my case me, the city where it was done, and then the serial number and caliber. Those markings are here on the side, and that was done by Legacy Gunworks, located here in Utah. They also did the Cerakote work on the suppressor tube, and they did a very good job of it. The whole package just really looks pretty awesome. So let's go ahead. We're going to take this apart so I can show you kind of what's inside, what makes it quiet. We are not going to have shooting in this video. However, I have a range trip planned to an outdoor area where I did my 3D printed firearm testing. And we're going to be gathering some more video on this, including some decibel testing. I have a decibel meter, trying that from a couple of different positions to see. In my brief test firing when I was developing this, after we had it, all serialized and all put together, it is noticeably quieter. But now I have a decibel meter, so we'll be able to see kind of how that works. I might, just to tease you guys, I might add just a quick little snippet video to this, just showing just a couple of test shots, unsuppressed, with just the pinned and welded baffle on the front and no tube, and then suppressed. But the video quality is not the best, and we don't have any decibel testing, so that'll just kind of be there to give you an idea of how this works. But yeah, let's go ahead, let's take this apart, see what's inside. So now we have the suppressor tube removed, and you can see kind of what is inside and what makes this tick. You can see the shortened barrel, that has been covered by this stainless steel mesh, which I'll probably kind of, once it sets, wrap it a little bit tighter. Right now it's sort of loose. It just creates some flow disruption patterns inside the suppressor body. It's really held in place by the suppressor body, so it's kind of a little loose right now. Up front, you have the Monochord Baffle stack. It looks pretty roughly machined, and that's because, well, frankly, it is roughly machined. I'm not a machinist by trade. Thankfully, I had my father-in-law who was able to assist with showing me how to use the machines in his shop. It started as 1.75, so 1 3/4 inch aluminum that we then turned down to 1.5 inch. The tube itself is 1 3/4 inch outer diameter, 1.5 inch inner. Why I went with the 1 3/4 inch was so that I just had to buy one piece of stock, so that we can machine the base cap and the end cap as well, which is welded onto the suppressor tube. But yeah, just turned it down to size, plunged a couple of 1 inch holes through it, and then plunged a couple of 1 inch holes on either side to sort of open it up and give it that that pattern, if you will, the chambers of this monocore. And then, you know, bored through the middle at a 1/2 inch bore, which is appropriate for the 45 ACP round, and then threaded the base so that we could attach it and then have it pinned and welded. It works really well. It's easy to disassemble. How it's attached to the rest of the suppressor. So we've got this base here that we machined, and then it has an O-ring, which is a little greasy and getting me dirty. It slides over and then seals up on that O-ring and then is secured by those screws. I wanted to have it threaded so you just sort of screw the whole body on, but frankly, neither of us really knew how to use the lathe as well as that. All of our tapping was done, all of the tapping that I did on this was done completely with just hand taps. So it's kind of amazing that this is actually concentric and works without baffle strikes, which is good. It hasn't had any baffle strikes or signs of baffle strikes in my testing so far. How this is attached to the barrel. The barrel is threaded on a normal Mauser barrel. The shoulder's kind of machined in, and that's what indexes against the receiver so that it headspaces. With the Rhineland Arms kit, it includes a little locking ring. So you screw in the barrel until it is headspaced appropriately, and then you lock it in place with the locking ring. This guy that I machined replaces that locking ring and is secured that way. So now the whole setup is actually very solid, and it's an integral part of the system. Technically and legally, you can shoot it like this. This is just kind of a really weird muzzle brake, if you will. But technically it is a baffle stack, and you have to have a completed Form 1 in order to build anything like this. So yeah, that's sort of how this ticks. And it is still a little bit of an evolving design. And you know, there are some parts I can't change now that it's completed, but some parts that I can tweak a little bit, and I'm still playing around with it to see what we can do to get the best performance out of it. But I am pretty proud of this design, and I'm pretty proud of the work, and I'm happy with how it turned out. Let's go ahead, put it back together, and I'll give you a couple of closing thoughts on this, and of course give you just a couple of little test shots at the end so that you can kind of see how it works and how effective this might be. But keep in mind, obviously we are going to do a full accuracy as well as sound level test later on down the line. In the next couple of weeks we'll have that done and uploaded. So let's put this back together and have a few closing thoughts. So there you have it. That is the inner workings of this very interesting rifle that I put together, that I kind of was inspired by the Lisle Carbine of World War II. Decided to make do with what I was able to get my hands on and put together what I feel is a very, very cool, very custom rifle. Not exactly going to be running into too many people at the range with a bolt action integrally suppressed, what visually looks like World War II series rifle. So couple of questions that I got asked. I posted this on Reddit, and it ended up being the highest upvoted thing that I have ever posted. So hopefully the videos follow suit and you guys like what you see. Couple of questions. How much does it weigh? As I mentioned, it's around 9 pounds. It is a chunky boy. But that weight means that it is very soft shooting, especially because it's shooting 45 ACP. I mean, this thing kind of sounds like a 22 when you shoot it, and feels like a pellet gun. It just, there's no oomph to it at all when you shoot, but you're still shooting big 230 grain fat boy with pills downrange, so pretty good effect on target. How much did this cost? That is a very open-ended question, but my general breakdown, the base rifle with the caliber conversion I was able to get for about $300, actually under $300, because I worked in a little bit of trade. The tax stamp for the Form 1 was $200. Obviously, all Form 1 tax stamps are $200. The materials for the suppressor up front were about $65 from Metals Depot. The use of the shop, as well as the education on how the shop works, was thankfully a family freebie, and was able to use that with assistance from my father-in-law, which big shout out to him. And the stock was like $25. So all in all, this is a pretty inexpensive build for what you are looking at. I mean, this is like budget AR-15 money, and this is infinitely cooler. I did get asked, how long did my tax stamp take? So as I mentioned before, the first one I submitted, and then a week later realized I was going to be stuck in pending research purgatory for months and months and months and months. So I filed a new tax stamp immediately, and that one cleared in 18 days from the time I hit submit to the time I had a PDF of the stamp delivered back to my email inbox. Then I was able to kind of start building this and doing what I wanted. The other tax stamp took over 100 days to clear pending research, and then I was finally able to cancel it and get a refund, and then the refund happened in like a week. So my pointers and my tips: if you are going to do a Form 1, don't get clever with your model name. Either choose a model name that's already on the drop-down menu, or use the drop-down menu to select N/A as the model name. Not applicable. If it's NA as the model name, 1, you save a little money on engraving, because you don't have to engrave a model name at all. You just have to engrave the serial number. And 2, God, that wait is kind of a pain in the butt. Usually pending research was like a couple of days, but lately it's like 3 months plus just to get out of that. And then you start the real wait for the tax stamp. That was done again e-file, which is the only way to do a Form 1. I don't understand why people want to do a paper Form 1. But yeah, so that's it. We're, like I said, going to go ahead and do a little bit of range video right now, just so you can kind of see a very brief, just a couple of shots to hear kind of how it sounds. And then we will be doing a full range video down the line, testing things like accuracy, sound signature, testing the sound signature from a couple of different locations, which might be nice, you know, being able to see how it sounds shooting downrange. Yeah, maybe take some produce out there and kind of see what this does to an apple or a very small watermelon. So these kind of projects, again, would be impossible without your guys' support. YouTube revenue ebbs and flows. This is obviously not my full-time day job, but the more you guys watch this stuff and the more you guys engage with it, comments, likes, saving it to playlists and things like that, the more it gets served up to other people, and the more I'm able to do ridiculous projects like this. So that is the best way that you guys can support me, is just watch my videos and enjoy them. I appreciate you guys doing that, and of course stay tuned until the next one when we'll be taking this out to the range. Thanks for watching.